So, certainly to me, this little bit of World War II history isn't as well known as much of the rest of it. How was that for you when you came into it?
Yeah, I knew very well, let's be honest, I knew nothing about that little pocket of time, which after spending some time in that little pocket or trying to and investigating a little bit, it seems like it was just an incredibly important moment in time. I mean, the decisions that were made during that time, and how if other decisions or different decisions had been made, how radically different the world could look in that region. So yeah, I was really, I feel like World War II for me, I feel like I'm totally lacking in historical knowledge to start with. But I feel like World War II was really dominated in my mind by what was going on in Europe and what was going on in Germany and Hitler and the Holocaust and just the massive horror of that. And so the whole South Pacific or Pacific campaign, the whole Japanese-American conflict and just how much went on there and how much loss of life there was, and then how it resolved itself was very new to me.
Did you then spend a lot of time trying to learn, trying to become aware of the period you were portraying before you started filming, or did you?
I would love to say. I mean, I would love for the rest of my life just to take pockets of time like this and just sort of dive into it and really learn the history. When you're working on something like this, you feel like you have to sort of prioritize. You have to figure out what's going to be important to you as an actor and what potentially could get in the way. I really feel like if I had dove into this moment in time and just like started investigating the history and really learning as much as I could about the history, it probably would have been really rewarding to me, but it would have been distracting from this film that I was working on and trying to serve the film the very best that I could. I mean, the very first time that I read the script, I actually thought that Bonner Fellers was a fictional character. I thought he was an invented character that was going to use to push the narrative forward. I mean, it didn't take me very long after that to realize that he was an actual man. But then that begged the question of like, well, how important is it if nobody knows anything about this man for me to dig into who this man was and maybe find some sort of mannerisms or anything that would be sort of period correct to who he was? How much is that going to benefit us or take away from serving this story? And I really feel like for me the choice was I want to tell the story that we're telling the very best that I possibly can. I have the freedom to do that. Tommy's situation was obviously very different. He's playing an incredibly well-known, iconic 20th century military figure. MacArthur, one of our most famous and iconic figures. So he, in something where images of this man and footages of this man is ingrained in our consciousness. So he had a sort of a different challenge. And I had the luxury of sort of just playing the guy to serve our story the very best I could.
Has anyone involved with Bonner Feller actually sort of come to you about the performance subsequently?
No.
Not yet?
No. That'd be cool if somebody did. I've only seen, there's very little about this guy. I mean, he's kind of a little bit of a shadowy figure. He was definitely in the intelligence world, and I think that guys like that, especially in 1945, you don't know much about. There's only a couple of photographs of him, which were sort of posed military photographs. I don't feel like we don't look that much alike, so
Did that lack of information and inform the character in terms of, you just said it yourself, he's a guy in intelligence services, he's a guy who's, there's certainly a mystique in the real world, so did you try to create that mystique in the character?
I think that the whole film was sort of important that be there. I mean, I remember the first conversation that I had with Peter. I mean, it was his goal that the 1945 investigative portion of the film, the sort of investigative thriller, if you can call it that, he wanted it to feel very noirish. And the minute he said that, I sort of understood that yes, there should be a little bit of mystery around our guy Fellers, and he should be sort of, just the facts man, kind of moving through the shadows of destroyed and rubble Tokyo, looking for some sort of resolution to this massive decision that he has to make. And, I think that's hopefully the way the film feels.
So, I got the noir vibe.
Good.
That's more or less my favourite bit of that.
Yeah,
but
good.
There's something very interesting in terms of the dynamic between your character and Tommy's, in that in a standard film of this ilk, there would almost be a rivalry, or not a rivalry, but there'd be sort of a frustration of Bonner by MacArthur, in sort of, that would be a standard setup,
Mm-hmm.
not a thing. How is it to play against that, to play with something where there's very much supportive between the two of them?
I thought that was exciting. I mean, I really wanted that to feel like, these guys to feel like, I wanted to feel like, that Fellers, really, one of the things that MacArthur is almost like a father figure to him, and that to let him down, to not be able to deliver on the request, not to be able to finish the mission, would be something that would be unacceptable. That's the way that I think that the military can work, that power structure and that hierarchy and that delivering of orders and expecting a result is something that I felt that would be cool for us to have, and I was hoping that would work out.
The character, again, staying on that sort of it being a little unusual, the character that you're playing himself is a general. He's a man with power and authority.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, how is that in terms of, again, creating something for him to struggle against,
mm-hmm.
for you?
I thought that was really amazing. It was the first time I really kind of understood how there's a saying in the military that shit always runs downhill, and it was the first time I really only understood that, because Bonner is he is Brigadier General. He's incredibly powerful to the men that are underneath him, but the minute he walks into a room with MacArthur, he's completely and ultimately subordinate and taking orders and executing orders without question. And I feel like the one thing that I did feel that I wanted to make in Fellers was that he believes in that military structure with all of his soul. That he never questions that, no matter what. And there are moments in the film where he starts to have a little scratchy feeling that MacArthur's motivations and the fact that he's been given this responsibility and that MacArthur didn't take it himself is a bit of a cop-out. There's just a tiny little whiff of it in the movie. But I wanted that to be something that really upsets Fellers, that he would even think that. Because that structure, everything depends on that structure.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated.